Let's talk about how the other woman is being used as the driving force when it comes to your spouse. Before I say this, because I don't know where this video is going to land, I want to let you know that I am very aware that the Bible says that you have biblical grounds to divorce where there is infidelity, okay? I am going to say this, okay, so that you can get an understanding, okay? So I'm going to lay the foundation that God restores marriages, and that cannot be argued at all, okay? So this video is for those who has a promise from God that he is going to restore this marriage. It doesn't matter if you are divorced. It doesn't matter, okay? God can restore it. This video is for you if you know for a fact that God is going to restore your relationship with this person or your marriage, okay? Because we know that God can do all things, and he does it according to his will, okay? I just want to make that very clear before I get into what I'm about to say, all right? But we have the understanding to know that marriage is spiritual, okay? It is a God-orchestrated thing, and God honors marriage, okay? Marriage is spiritual, and it is not to be done without Jesus, okay? And with the understanding that marriage is spiritual, we understand that Satan, okay, who is a spiritual entity, hates marriages. So he will attack and do whatever he needs to do to try to dismantle a marriage because he hates it, okay? He hates it. He hates unity. He hates peace. And he will use whatever and whoever he can to try to destroy a marriage, all right? So I want to talk about how the other woman is being used as a driving force. See, when the devil begins to dismantle a marriage or a God-ordained relationship, he starts on the inside of the relationship. So there could be disagreements, there could be pride, there could be trauma, so much things that will happen on the inside of the connection. There could be sin, there could be ignorance of not listening to God, right? These things are open doors to cause external influences to come and drag one person away. Because if there is no peace between you and the other person, it's going to be very easy to use somebody on the outside to drag them away from God's will, okay? Whenever the connection is put together by the Lord. I want you to understand that this woman is on a spiritual assignment, okay? She is being influenced by another spirit, okay? Whether they know it or not, okay? She is on a spiritual assignment, okay? Especially if she knows that your spouse is already married, okay? I want you to understand that it might seem like God is allowing these two people to get away with their evil. It might seem like God is allowing the divorce to happen. And if you're not married, it might seem like God is allowing them to live their life together. Whenever you are not inside the will of God, there are consequences. But what happens is you have to get to a specific place in spiritual maturity, because you are going to be a vessel when it comes to this other person's salvation through your obedience to God. But I want you to understand that this woman is on spiritual assignment. Now, when you get to a place in your relationship with God and God removes your spiritual blindness and he heals you, you understand your authority. You're not going to force or make anything happen in the physical. Your obedience is what's going to set your spouse free, okay? When my spouse was intertwined with a counterfeit, I would have dreams of him being in a prison, okay? I would have dreams of him. It's almost like he was in jail. And the way that he was acting when he was with this woman, it felt like she had a particular control over him, where he would just like hide and, do things to satisfy her, okay? God was showing me in my dreams that he literally was in a prison. But then I began to have dreams where he escaped from the prison. Now, my dreams was telling a story, but the physical realm was the complete opposite, which made me feel like I was losing my mind. I want you to understand that the main thing that your spouse leaves the will of God for will be the main thing that drives them back to God. So God is not just freely letting them do whatever and get away with it. You do not know what these people go through on a day-to-day basis, because Facebook used to whip my behind because it looked like I was wasting my time. The enemy would use social media a lot to tear me down. I did whatever I could to see what was going on, and that is how the enemy was using my ignorance against me, because I did not understand the rules of the Spirit. I did not fully understand what walking by faith looked like, okay? So the enemy will begin to use this woman to create soul ties, to create false security, to create false peace, okay? Let me help you understand why it's false. Because God is not in it, okay? God is not blessing that, okay? A lot of times they have to use external tangible things, money and other resources tangibly, okay, to feel like, oh, this is a great thing to do, okay? Because Satan had caused havoc between you and your spouse to drive y'all to a place of separation, and you did not know that because you thought your spouse was the problem. But you have to understand that the enemy knows what your weaknesses are. So he would cause things to happen to frustrate those weaknesses and that trauma. And ultimately, because nobody's in prayer, nobody is submitting to God, you do things out of your flesh. And anything that happens with flesh, it reaps corruption. So Satan started all of this thing. You know, he uses our ignorance against us when God is there the whole time. And a lot of times God does show us things, you know, but we don't yield to that because we are blinded by what's actually happening in the physical. This connection is literally going to be what God uses to bring them back, because God will allow them to feel like they're in love. God will allow them to let their guard down. And anytime that happens and it's not a blessing, it causes chaos and torment, okay? While you are standing and believing for this, Satan doesn't want you to have forgiveness. He wants you to be like, oh, don't talk to me if you're still connected to her life. He wants you to have a bad attitude. This is a spiritual journey, all right? Yes, other women are not going to agree with you standing for a covenant or a God-ordained relationship, because maybe those women don't have revelation from God, you know? God doesn't restore every marriage. He doesn't restore every relationship because they are demonic. But there are relationships and things that God puts together that the enemy attacks. Even in the word, he said, let nothing separate what God put together. For that to be in the Bible, that is a direct instruction to know something could happen to dismantle this thing. I have learned in my journey that my prayers surround my husband, okay? He has a fire around him because of my intercession. When I learn how to pray, there's a fire around them that when God sets them free, they stay free until they get to a place in God of understanding and strong spiritually, okay? I know it feels like you're the main one that has to do the work, but you're partnering with God. And although you want to give up, God is going to overturn this situation, but there is an understanding that needs to happen in your mind so that you can steward and operate this season effectively, okay? When you are a woman of faith, a woman of intercession, you uproot and dismantle her influence in his heart and in his mind, and you are praying the will of God in this man's life. And the Bible says when you pray according to the will of God, you will have what you ask for. But sometimes God has to get you where you need to be at in him. If you don't know how to pray warfare prayers, I have an ebook called Uprooting the Other Woman. And I have another ebook called He's With Her But God Chose Me Communication ebook bundle. Both of those are separate things, but they are in the link in my bio, and it will teach you everything you need to know if there's another woman in the